Morning. Today we look at Exodus 29 and 30. In chapter 29 talks about the service of ordination for Aaron and his sons, their ordination as priests, their consecration is another word that's used in there, and it's what it says is verse 1. This is what you shall do to them to consecrate them. And to consecrate is to set apart, to make holy, and it's we use the words of we consecrate the bread and the wine for Holy Communion with Jesus' words. We set them apart to be holy. And so this is what God is saying, is that Aaron and his sons after him will be priests, and they will be set apart. They will be holy to me. They will be maybe, I don't know, different than the others. Or, I mean, they're not different. They're not different because it's the same. But they're set apart for God's service, and it's quite detailed. There's to take a bull, a young bull, take 2 rams, unleavened bread, unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and very, again, just like the building of the tabernacle, very detailed, very explicit in his instructions to Moses as to the ordination of Aaron and his sons as priests. And you dress them, and you bring the bull in, and they lay their hands on the bull, they slaughter the bull, and some of it gets burnt as a smoke offering, and some of it is a burnt offering, and then with the rams, they do 1 ram, and then they do the other ram, and some of it is burned with everything, and it's just, again, very specific, and with their clothing, with their vestments, that their tunics and their ephod and all of that stuff that God told them how to stitch them, knit them together, weave them together, whatever. Very specific as to put them on, and putting, in verse 30 of chapter 29, you shall slaughter the ram, take some of the blood, put it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, and the lobes of the right ears of his sons, and of their thumbs of their right hands. And I know that I'm looking probably left, but this is my right hand. It's reversed in his thing, maybe. I don't remember for sure. But anyway, very specific instructions as to using some of the blood then on the altar, and some of the anointing oil to sprinkle it on Aaron and his vestments and his sons, so that the vestments and everything are set apart. And I have a fellow pastor that I know, as he would gets ready for Sunday morning. I mean, I don't preach with my alb and my stole and all that very often, but as he would put each piece of his Sunday morning vestments on, there was a little prayer of blessing and making it special, making it holy, setting it apart, and within that, setting himself apart that way for service to God for that time. And it was interesting to me to have him explain that to us one time. And I mean, I know, like, the alb has the significance of, the white alb as being, the pure white lamb, and the rope, the cincture that you put around, well, that's, you're yoked to Christ, and the different stole that you put on, signifies again that we're yoked to God, we're tied to Christ, and if you wear a cross, all of those things have meaning. And so here God is, telling them, how you consecrate, how do you ordain these priests. And my ordination, we gathered at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon in the church, and it was a special service, and within that part of the service of my ordination, all the other ordained pastors that were there came forward and laid their hands, and it was a special prayer that way, setting all pastors and deacons and deaconesses. There are ceremonies for recognizing people for God's service. And this is what chapter 29 of the book of Exodus is pretty much mostly about, is the ordination of the priests. It goes into talking about daily offerings, yearly offerings, like verse 38. This is what you shall offer on the altar: 2 lambs, a year old, regularly each day. This is a 7-day ceremony, so it's not every day for a whole year, but it's this 7-day ordination ceremony, and it just, again, very specific of how it all should be done. And then in chapter 30, talks about some of the other priestly manners, priestly duties. You shall make an altar on which to offer the incense. You will make it of acacia wood, and it'll be a cubit by a cubit, so about 18 inches square and 2 cubits high, so roughly 36 inches high. But again, this will be where you will do where you will offer your incense. And when we get further in here in verse 22, it's there's an anointing oil that, again, God is very specific on. Take the finest spices, liquid myrrh, 500 shekels, of sweet-smelling cinnamon, half as much. That is 250 shekels. So a shekel is whether it's a unit of weight or a liquid measure. It kind of sounds like it could be both. I mean, like an ounce can be a fluid ounce or a solid ounce, But anyway, so they make this anointing oil out of myrrh, cinnamon, aromatic cane, cassia, and a hin of olive oil, and you blend it as a perfumer would blend this. And this will be the holy anointing oil. And if you make similar oils for other things, you shouldn't do that. And then there's, and you use this oil to anoint Aaron and his sons and consecrate them in order that they may serve me as priests. And then again, the caution to the Israelites in verse 31, this shall be my holy anointing oil throughout generations. It shall not be used in any ordinary anointing of the body, and you shall make nothing like it in its composition. It is holy. And then verse 34 starting, this is to make some incense for burning, to burn that way, and to make this incense as blended by the perfumer, seasoned with salt, pure and holy, and it's God giving instructions as to the priests and priestly manners, and it's a reminder for us that God is so much different than we are. And when we come to God, this holy, loving, gracious, forgiving God, we're on holy ground, and that God can be no less than holy. God can be no less than forgiving or welcoming, because He can't be anything else. And so He's been leading these chosen people, in the Exodus, and they're still on the way to the Promised Land. They're not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but He has given them instructions as to how to worship, of things not to do, and they continue to fail, just as we do today. We continue to fail. However, God, this loving, gracious, merciful God, never fails us, and He's always there to welcome, to forgive, to encourage, to strengthen. And I guess in so many ways, God is deserving of our love. We are not deserving of His grace and His forgiveness, but God shows us, how to worship, how to hold Him as special, as honored, as so much more than we are, because He is so much more than we are.